Welcome to Top 3 with Strada Law, where we explore the intersection of the law with your life and business journey. At Strada Law, we're committed to changing how you view lawyers and the legal profession. So in this podcast, we have real conversations with real people about real things, not just legalese. We'll talk with those who have faced the challenges you're facing so you can learn from their experience. And we'll share 3 easy to remember takeaways on each episode. Yeah, we'll talk about the law, but we'll mostly talk about life and business and how the law overlaps with almost everything that you do. I'm Jeneva Vazquez, the owner and principal attorney of Strada Law, a law firm focused on serving estate planning and small business planning clients, and I'm your host. As a quick disclaimer, I'm a lawyer, but I'm not your lawyer unless we've entered into a written agreement to work together. I'm licensed in North Carolina, New Mexico, South Carolina, Florida, and New Jersey, and can serve clients in those states. Nothing said here today is intended to be legal advice, and this information is for educational purposes only. With me today, we have Kyle Romanat, the owner of Health Market Genius LLC. Health Market Genius LLC helps you understand your health insurance options in the marketplace. When Kyle started the company, the Affordable Care Act had recently kicked in, and the entire landscape of health insurance had changed. The growing pains of this new major legislation were having a direct effect on the ability of average people to purchase medical health insurance, and Kyle sought out to fill those gaps through his company. With more than 24 years of health insurance experience, Kyle helps individuals navigate the health insurance landscape and find coverage to meet their needs. So excited to have you here with us today, Kyle.
Yeah, hey Geneva, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So part of the reason I wanted to have you here today, well, there's many of them. One is, obviously we're in the biggest, major, most impactful healthcare issue that we've seen in our lifetimes, right, through the pandemic. And healthcare, health insurance is really being highlighted for so many people in this moment in time. But then also, aside from that, there's so much conversation right now just in politics about health insurance change and how that might be modified over time. So it's a really hot topic and something that, frankly, I think a lot of people just don't know that much about. And so I thought that you'd be a great resource to, lend some information and insight to all of that. But then also, I want to talk about, health insurance from the perspective of an entrepreneur or business owner as well. So to kick things off, just tell us a little bit about you and who you are and your company.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Geneva. So I've been in the business about 24 years. I worked for a company for about 19 years. Was tied directly with Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina. And then I started my own business 5 years ago. So when I did that, I became a broker, meaning that I could represent a lot of different companies. So I continue to represent Blue Cross, but I also represent other companies, all the other companies that are out there on the marketplace. Plus, so marketplace is also known as Obamacare. So I deal with those, and then I deal with alternatives to those as well. So if that's not a good fit for somebody, then I have alternative options I can help people with.
Okay. So your primary goal is to just help individuals navigate what their options are. Is that right?
Yeah. So a good way to look at it is if somebody wanted to start their own business or leave the corporate world, they're not going to have benefits, or maybe they just were coming out of college and they didn't want to go into the corporate world. They want to start their own business. They had to shop for their own insurance. That was my goal, to provide those people all the options that would be pertinent.
Okay. Yeah. And it's a huge thing. And what you've said is, I think, a big factor. I think where we see and where I see in my business and my firm, people who are starting businesses or side hustlers who are thinking about starting a business, one of the main factors people weigh is how they're going to get health insurance coverage, and so many people are afraid to leave their 9-to-5 and kick off that entrepreneurial journey because of that factor. Yeah. And, we saw it actually in our own family. My dad, I think I had mentioned this to you before, but my dad is a business owner for 38 years. And, my mom, when we were kids, was a stay-at-home mom. And all of a sudden, the insurance issue for our family became such a big deal that she had to, go back to work just for the sole purposes of being able to get us insured, because he, as a sole business owner, didn't have very many options, as a small business with, all part-time staff, if you will. So it's a huge life-changing thing for many people.
Yeah, it really is. So, so what I help people do is, Obamacare was a game changer. That kicked in 2014, and it really changed the whole industry. The Affordable Care Act changed everything. So I realized at that time, I said, this is kind of complicated. Basically what happened is you had the consumer and you had the insurance companies, and then the government just kind of stuck themselves right in the middle. So the consumer kind of had to deal with the government before they could get insurance. So it got complicated, and that's what I help people do. I help them to deal with that in a very easy way, and hopefully I make it easy and just make it a smooth process so they don't get hung up. And I help them understand, how the income falls into play, how different scenarios come into play. For example, all pre-existing conditions are covered with an Obamacare plan or a marketplace plan. I use those interchangeably. And there's different factors that play in as well.
So talk to me about that. Let's say I'm a new business owner. I'm thinking about starting a new business, and insurance coverage is something that I'm considering, but I need some help or guidance. So I reached out to you directly. Talk to me a little bit about what that process looks like for you to figure out how somebody might get covered, what their options might be, what are the costs associated with that?
Yeah, let me give a scenario. That's probably the best way. And I'll start with young people first. So let's just say you graduate from college, or maybe you don't go to college. You're in the working world. Maybe you work at Starbucks as a side hustle. Maybe you're trying to develop some kind of company, software company or something like that. You need to find health insurance, but you're not making a lot of money yet. Okay, that type of person, Obamacare is perfect for that kind of person, because the government provides a subsidy based on income. So the lower the income, the better the subsidy they can get. So the bottom line is they can get health insurance at a very inexpensive cost. Now, unfortunately, the politics come into play where, there's supposed to be a certain income and this, that, and the other thing. But if you handle that the right way, if you have an agent who can help you, you can cut through all that and you can get coverage. A young person can get a very good policy. I have 2 kids in their 20s, and they don't make a lot of money. They have excellent health insurance, very, very inexpensively. One of them, I think, pays $10 a month. The other pays, I think, $40. Low deductible, like a $250 deductible Blue Cross plan. So those options are available.
Okay. And then now walk me through somebody who might not be so young.
Okay. So let's just say you've got a family of 4. We'll use a different scenario. Family of 4, maybe the parents are in their 40s. Maybe they leave the corporate world and they want to start a business. Okay. And, it's not like they're right out of college, not making zero, but they don't make a tremendous amount of money. Well, if you're a family of 4, you can get a subsidy and make up to about $100,000 a year. So, if you're making $100,000 or under, that subsidy will pay about 3/4 of the insurance premium. So you can get a really good deal. So that's how, family, a little bit older than a college student, they would benefit from that type of option.
Okay. That's helpful to know. And so when somebody reaches out to you and begins this process, what does it look like from an actual logistical point of view? How much paperwork is involved? What is the time process? How difficult is it to navigate this process, in other words?
Yeah, it's a great question. So policies generally are issued by these companies on the 1st of the month. So you could literally have everything wrapped up in 2 days or 1 day, really. I handle sometimes cases where someone will call me on the 31st of the month and they need coverage the following day. And we can do that. It's not a problem. The first thing is I email them quotes. I discuss the quotes with them. They pin down something they want. Then we just move forward. I help them get that. There's an application that they do, but it's a very simple application. And then once that's done, once they're in the system, then I communicate with them on the next steps. And there's a variety of next steps that happen behind the scenes between the government and the health insurance company. There's just a lot of moving pieces, and that's what and the client doesn't have to worry about all those. There's a few things they need to do, but I tell them what they need to do. But it generally is a smooth process.
So if somebody were to try to do this on their own without using somebody like you to help facilitate the process, they would have to do all those moving parts on their own, all the responses and all of that. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, you can do that. You can go to healthcare.gov or you can call them and you can do that. But it's a little like, having a complicated business situation and doing your own taxes, You may or may not get it right. But imagine using an accountant that didn't charge you anything. That would be a no-brainer, right? You'd be like, well, heck, this guy's going to help me do my taxes and not charge me anything. Well, that's how I work. I don't charge anything to the client. I get paid a commission by all the companies that I deal with. So somebody can use me, not pay a thing, but I get paid. I get paid by the company, and they get my services for free, and they can make sure it's done right. Plus, they have somebody who's accountable to them. If they have a problem, if they have an issue, if they need to make a change, if they get something that looks weird, they come to me, and I help them with that. And most of that is just driven by experience. I've been dealing with the marketplace since day one in 2014, so I generally know how it all works and how to solve the problems.
Right. So if, and I see that too in my space where people are starting businesses and they can do things on their own, but frequently they mess them up, to be frank. So, a lot of times just getting the advice of somebody who has the experience in the space is invaluable. It's can really help avoid the pitfalls, in other words, and make sure that you can get the process done and get it done right.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different things. You've got the government in the middle, and they have, you're dealing with a bureaucracy that has different rules and guidelines, and then they request stuff like proof of income or proof of prior coverage, and that can be overwhelming as to how to satisfy these requirements. But I've gone through all those steps, and I've found ways to make all those steps easy. So it's a pretty smooth process.
Okay.
It can be.
It should be. It should be. Hopefully it is, right? Yeah. And so now we're getting to this part of the year that is deemed to be open enrollment in your world, right? And so that begins November 1, right? And runs through December 15th. Right. That's every year. So talk to me a little bit about what open enrollment is, why it matters, how it impacts people.
Okay. Open enrollment is a period of time where anybody can apply for coverage. Okay, you don't have to prove anything. You don't have to do anything. Anybody at all can apply for coverage and get coverage. So you could have cancer. You could have been diagnosed with cancer in July, and now here come November 1st, you can apply and get coverage effective January 1st, and your premiums would be the same as anybody else. Okay, so that's why they have this 6-week open enrollment period. They don't want somebody, if they get cancer in July, they don't have insurance, they don't want them saying, well, I didn't buy insurance, so now I'll get it in July. So to have that condition as part of the plan where you can have pre-existing conditions covered, they make you wait till open enrollment. But I talk to people all the time during the middle of the year who have medical issues that have popped up, and I say, well, I'm sorry, we have to wait till open enrollment. And then once that time comes, then they can get coverage.
So what about somebody who doesn't have a pre-existing condition in the middle of the year? Like, let's say I'm starting my business, today, and I want insurance tomorrow, and I don't want to wait until November, but I don't have a pre-existing condition.
Okay. Well, then there's other options. If you want a marketplace plan, if you want Obamacare, you're still gonna have to wait till open enrollment. But there are other options that you can get, and the biggest drawback to these other options is they don't cover pre-existing conditions. But it is good coverage, and you can get it at any time, and it's very inexpensive. It just mainly has that one condition, no pre-existing conditions. So you do have options when that happens. Also, if people leave prior coverage, like from an employer or from a parent's policy, they have a 60-day window where they can get a marketplace plan. It's called a special enrollment period. So there's options they have. And people don't have to remember all this. I help them with these things.
Right. And that's the great part of having a resource like you available. So if, I guess, so ideally, in theory, if you are wanting to leave your 9 to 5 and you want to move over to opening your own business and you want to do that and you're concerned about coverage, the best thing to do to see what your options are would be to get in touch with somebody like you, right? Yeah. You or somebody like you to help navigate that before you, put in your notice and walk out the door. Make sure you've got that set up or established. But right. in other words, there's options regardless of when you do that.
Yeah, there's options. And I don't charge anything to provide quotes. I don't charge anything at all to clients ever. Matter of fact, no money ever exchanges hands with me. Once they get a policy, they pay the company. So I'm not involved with that. But yeah, they get quotes, they see what their options are, they discuss it with me. I encourage people to help me understand their situation, what they're dealing with, what their concerns are, and then I just guide them as to what the best process is.
How frequently can you change? So, is there like, for example, you have one provider this year and then maybe there's a better option available to you next year. Is that something you see people switching frequently, or?
Absolutely, absolutely. So you can do that. You can get a plan this year, and then during open enrollment period, if something's changed, maybe you got married, or maybe you had a child, maybe you changed jobs or change what you're going to do. It's very important to stay abreast of what's going on with your insurance. For example, if you get a job that offers benefits, then you need to cancel your marketplace plan. More than likely, you're not eligible for a subsidy if you're offered coverage through an employer. So there's a lot of little rules, a lot of moving pieces that people don't have to remember, but I just encourage my clients to let me know if they have a change.
Yeah. So yeah, it is. It's a lot of information to keep on top of. And I guess it's somewhat like any other type of insurance, right? Where it's like you always got to keep your eye on it and not really just go on autopilot, because you might be missing other opportunities or better cost savings that are available to you when you continuously, shop those plans and make sure you're getting the best value for your money.
Absolutely. And I communicate with my clients on a regular basis via email or texting or calling. But, I provide communication where, they're like, oh, yeah, that's my agent, and I had this change. Or I have this question. So I try to make it easy for people to find me, whether it be clients or even prospective clients through, different marketing methods.
Yeah. So now for my top three, what I wanted to hone in on is, and maybe we've already covered this, but I like to give easy, quick takeaways for people to remember. And that's the whole, concept behind this show, is at least you'll walk away remembering three things. So, so for my top three, what I like to focus on is, for my firm, I work with a lot of small business owners, people who are just starting out, a lot of side hustlers, and, speaking directly to them, what are the top three things that you would want a small business owner or a side hustler to know about in the insurance space, how they can get coverage, or however you want to take this in your direction?
Yeah, that's a good question. So number one, I would say, don't assume that you can't get coverage for a good price. I talk to people all the time, and once they get the quotes, they're like, wow, I didn't know that was out there. I didn't know that was available. Okay. So that's number one. You can get there's options to get coverage at a good price most of the time. That's number one. Number two, I think people should check if they're looking to make a leap from a company, maybe a corporate world, to the individual sole proprietor world or entrepreneurial world. They should check before they leave. Okay, they should check before they jump, just sort of know what to expect. So I think that's important. And you like to do three things, right? So
I like to do three.
I would think another thing for people to keep in mind is just knowing that there's a variety of options out there. People hear about Obama. I get people who tell me, I don't want Obamacare. So I say, well, let's talk about this a little bit. And what I realize is they don't want to get caught up in a political thing. But once we're just talking health insurance, then they're going to choose the best option for them. And so I tell people, don't make a judgment call about what a product is going to look like. Let's talk about it first, and then once you have the facts, then you can make an informed decision.
So the top three, just to recap: don't assume you can't get good coverage for a reasonable price, or a relatively reasonable price, depending on what's reasonable to you. Number two is to check with your employer before you make a move. Right?
Look before you leave. Check on your options before you leave your employer.
And be prepared. It's not something that, because even though it can be a quick process, I think it's got to be important for most people to understand everything that they're dealing with, right? And this is just one of the pieces of the many aspects that go into building a business on your own, is to make sure that you yourself and your family are cared for through this process.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a really good tip. And then the third is to don't let your bias, in other words, conflate what may or may not be true about these particular plans.
Right. Yeah. Get all the facts before you make a judgment call. So many misconceptions, especially during the political season, where people have these political thoughts about, this or that, and they can kind of let that cloud their good judgment with regard to, the best health insurance for them.
Yeah. I just out of curiosity, how has your business changed through the pandemic? I mean, are you seeing an uptick in the number of people who want to be insured?
Yes, because a lot of people are being furloughed, they're being laid off, they're wanting to stay home with their kids instead of going to work, since the kids have to stay home and do school. So yeah, it's been a very busy season for me. Um, Fortunately, most of what I do is virtual business-wise anyway. I do meet with clients when they feel like that's important. But now, with Zoom calls and, all the technology out there, most of what I do is virtual. So that part has just continued to roll on the same way.
You raise a good point. So for those who have lost their job due to the pandemic, have been furloughed, who are maybe no longer eligible for benefits they were receiving before, those are also people who should reach out to you and talk about what their options are.
Absolutely.
Now, where can you work with clients?
Not sure what you mean by that.
Like state-wise, where are your primary services?
North and South Carolina.
Okay, so that's your primary.
Anywhere in North or South Carolina, I can work.
Now, for any listeners that we have that are in other locations, how should they find somebody that's similar to you that can help fill that gap?
Well, first of all, they can reach out to me. I may not sell in that state, but I could give them some guidance about how they can go about finding options in that state. So that's something they can do if they're out of state. But I usually end up telling people, go on the internet and look for the marketplace in your state. Every state deals with the marketplace. They either have their own, like a lot of the northeastern states have their own. The southern states generally are part of what's called the federal marketplace. But if you Google, health insurance in your state or marketplace, it'll pull up what you need to see, and that's a good place to start.
Okay, but you're happy to serve as a contact regardless of where it may be.
Yep.
That's good.
And all the time.
Yeah, it's nice to have a trusted resource, even if it's just to figure out how to find somebody else that can help you in your location or things of that nature. So I appreciate your tips with that. And, during this time, of course, I'm sure it's a huge priority for you to make sure that the people who have lost their jobs that need coverage overnight, are finding options that are available to them.
Yeah, if it happens late in the month and they're thinking, I don't have enough time, they probably do. So, I handle those. Obviously, I encourage people not to wait to the last minute, but if that happens, usually we can accommodate it.
Perfect. So, Kyle, where can our listeners find you?
They can email me at kyle@healthmarketgenius.com. They can go to my website, which is healthmarketgenius.com. They can call me at 828-266-1369.
Great. Yep. And then you're on social media as well.
Yes. Yeah, they can Google me. They Google Health Market Genius LLC. It'll pull up. Yep.
And so one thing that we'll do is in the show notes, we'll go ahead and put all your contact information. So if anybody needs to get directly in touch with you or has any follow-up questions, they can route them directly to you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And the other thing I haven't mentioned, but I spent the whole morning dealing with this, is I deal with Medicare-related options too. So this is also the annual enrollment period for Medicare people. So people 65 and over, they have to figure out what to do with their Medicare-related options. So I help them with that too.
Are those the same dates?
No, they're slightly different. They're October 15th through December 7th.
Okay.
So, overlaps. So it's busy time.
So for anybody that might need Medicare guidance or assistance, they can reach out to you as well for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Well, thanks. This has been really informative for me. And, I try to help give my clients a full gamut of resources that they might need when they're starting their business. And this is a huge factor for many people when they are deciding to take that leap. And, especially where they don't have a spouse or a partner that they can get insurance through, and, just a single individual, there's a lot to consider with all of that. So Your expertise and guidance is greatly appreciated. And I hope anybody who has any follow-up questions will reach out to you.
Yeah, thanks, Geneva. I certainly appreciate being here.
Thanks so much. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Top 3 with Strada Law, and to our guest, Kyle Romanat, the owner of Health Market Genius LLC, for sharing his top 3 takeaways with us. Be sure to tune in to the next episode of Top 3 with Strada Law. We release new episodes bi-weekly, and you can catch all the other shows on the Sal-E-Boys Podcast Network by subscribing to the Sal-E-Boys Podcast Network wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. To find out more about Strada Law, you can visit us at www.lestradalaw.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or Twitter. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.